The ilium is the largest of the three bones that are fused together in an adult to compose the border sections of the pelvis. The ilium is present in most vertebrates. This does not include bony fish and most snakes. In humans, it is divided into two sections, the body and the ala, shown by the line on the surface of the bone. The other two bones that fuse to form the pelvis are known as the ischium and the pubis, which lie inferior to the ilium. On the ilium, there are four distinct landmarks that show the ala. On the interior aspect of the ilium is the anterior superior iliac spine, the anterior inferior iliac spine, and on the posterior aspect is the posterior superior iliac spine and the posterior inferior iliac spine. From the posterior superior view of the iliac is a very flat and broadened area of the bone. This is the largest structure on the ilium and is known as the ala of the hip bone. In Latin, ala means wing, inferring that this is the wing of the hip bone. The iliac fossa is a smooth part of the anterior surface of the ilium. It is called the fossa because it is a slightly indented area. The iliac fossa is the origin point of the iliacus muscle. The iliacus joins and merges with its fibers with the psoas major, forming the iliopsoas muscle. The iliopsoas muscle is the main flexor of the hip. Although the ilium is a pelvic bone, it is not part of the true pelvis. The true pelvis starts inferior to the acuric line, a sharp ridge running between the pubic and sacral surface. Superior to the acuric line is considered the false pelvis. The beginning of the iliopubic eminence is marked by the accurate line. This distinguishes the union of the ilium and the pubis, creating a lateral border of the pelvic inlet, also known as the iliopectineal line, showing the border of the eminence as well as where the psoas major inserts. Closer to the posterior iliac spine is the irregular surface called the auricular surface. This surface is the attachment site for the sacrum. Closer to the posterior side and superiorly to the auricular surface is a very rough and rugged part of the bone known as the ischial tuberosity. The iliac crest is a ridge that is formed by the anterior superior iliac spine all the way to the posterior iliac spine. From the lateral view, it is seen that the crest is not a perfectly straight line, but an S shape. On the crest, there are wide areas of the bone that serve as an attachment site for the transverse abdominal muscles, the internal oblique muscles, and the external oblique muscles. On the posterior surface, there are attachment sites for the gluteal muscles. The inferior gluteal line, extending to the posterior superior iliac crest, is where the gluteus maximus inserts, helping with hip extension. The ridge located on the ala is the posterior gluteal line. The space between the posterior gluteal line and the superior iliac crest is the attachment site for the gluteus medius muscle. This muscle helps with extension and hip abduction. From the inferior gluteal line to the posterior gluteal line articulates the gluteus minimus muscle. This muscle takes up most of the surface area of the ilium and helps with hip flexion. The greater sciatic notch is seen best from the posterior view. It lies between the posterior inferior iliac spine and the ischial spine. The sacrospinous ligament, which attaches at the ischial spine to the lateral aspect of the sacrum and coccyx, transforms the greater sciatic notch into the greater sciatic foramen. The lesser sciatic notch lies below the ischial spine and is transformed into the lesser sciatic foramen by the sacrospinosus and sacrotuberosus ligaments. From the lateral view, there is a cup-shaped socket. This socket is known as the acetabulum. The head of the femur fits into the acetabulum and articulates with it, forming a ball and socket joint. The ilium is the uppermost and largest of the hip bones. It makes up 2/5 of the acetabulum. This concludes the main features of the ilium. The ilium, the ischium, and the pubis make up the bones of the hip bone. 2 hip bones, a sacrum and a coccyx, compose the pelvis bone. This concludes my video. Thank you so much for watching.